This is the Afterburn podcast, and my name is Joe Alvarado. This is episode 11, and I get a chance to interview my friend Ben Kohler. He's a master educator for stages, indoor cycling, subject matter expert at the American Council on Exercise, and fitness and wellness director at the University of Minnesota. Ben Kohler is a 12-year fitness professional with a master's in kinesiology from the University of Minnesota. His interests focus on the behavioral aspects of physical activity and creating an inclusive fitness environment that promote positive and physical activity experiences for everyone. Let's get into this. Ben Kohler, thank you so much, man, for being on the pod today. Like, we've been trying to do this for a while, and our schedules have kind of conflicted. If it wasn't mine, it was yours, and kind of vice versa. But man, I'm so honored to have you today. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, excited to be here, excited to chat with you and share some knowledge.
Absolutely, man. I remember meeting you, and correct me wherever I get my older brain, sometimes doesn't remember everything, but I know it was pre-COVID, and Stages had an event at one of these, not an event. They were part of I forget what, man, help me remember.
It was probably Idea World or some
Yes.
other conference that we were a part of.
Yeah, Idea World. That was what it was. And this was me kind of chasing at the dream of becoming, an educator for Stages. And I remember going to one of your workshops and just hearing the way that you communicated, the way that you laid the ground. And what I would say, like, man, I took away so much from that. I mean, I want you to share a little bit of your story too, but I want everybody to know what of influence you've had on me as it relates to just your delivery for a class. Like, talk about somebody who knows how to make every person in the room feel like they're somebody. And this is from the beginner to the first timer to the seasoned person to the returner. I mean, as far as I can tell, as far as from my experience, I don't know anybody who lays the foundation of a class better than Ben Kohler. I mean, you're so good at it, man. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, that's so kind. I remember those days. They were the high point for sure of our educator life, right? Getting to travel the country and meet with different instructors and present. And COVID obviously made the whole world different. And now we're finally getting back to some of that work. And I'm really excited to get back out there and meet people just like you on the road and traveling and all that good stuff. So thanks for having me.
No,
Li-
so yeah. Tell
Go
me
ahead.
about yourself. Yeah, tell
Yeah,
us a
for
little bit
sure.
about it.
So wow, where to start? So I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was a soccer player. That was kind of what I did year round. I think I fell into the trap of sports specialization too early, right? Where you pick a sport and that's all you do year round. So I was soccer all throughout high school. And then I knew when I went to college, I wanted something different. I'd kind of been burnt out of soccer practice every day, running sprints at the end of practice till you're blue
Uh,
in the head. It's
yeah.
definitely not the most exciting memories of physical activity, and I think that that really is what drives my focus on creating good, positive movement experiences. Because I think so many people just have one or two bad experiences with exercise, and then it turns them off from the idea for way too long. And I think that that's where a lot of the issues we see, and we can dive more into that.
Yeah.
But as I was exploring kind of life in the college world, I jumped out to Seattle where I went to undergrad and just started taking classes at the gym. I started with indoor cycling and some boot camp classes and really just found it as a fun community based way to stay fit, not having soccer anymore. I wasn't quite ready to jump fully into like the meathead lifestyle of lifting weights in the
Yeah.
gym. So group fitness really became my little home away from studying. And it was through really awesome instructors that connected with me and lifted me up and got me through that first year in college that I dove into instruction based on one of their recommendations. They were like, "Hey Ben, you're like at class in the front row every single day. Why
Yeah.
don't you get certified and become an instructor? You'd be great at it." And I don't know. I was a little shy back then. It's kind of weird to think of that now, as someone who like will take any chance I can to put a microphone on and go in front of a group of cyclists. But it was a really fun way to kind of get my feet wet. And I did my first certification through spinning, Mad Dog Athletics,
Yeah.
and then yeah, kind of jumped right into teaching when I got back to school. And then it was kind of a slippery slope from there. Once you start teaching something, you just want to teach everything. So
Yeah.
I was focusing on cycle. I became certified personal trainer. I was teaching boot camps. I was doing kickboxing. I
Love
dabbled a
it.
little bit in yoga and some of the mind body formats and just really loved it. And I graduated with my degree in sports and exercise science and started working full time in fitness in Seattle after I graduated. Made probably 3 or 4 different gyms, kind of piecing it together. As you know, the fitness lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're working when no one else is working, so lots of early morning shifts, noon shifts, evening shifts. You kind of
Oh
piece it
yeah.
together to make life go, and kind of took the fast route to burnout there as well. Just teaching too many classes, working with too many clients, and kind of wanted to stay in fitness but didn't know where to go, and started looking at grad school. And that's kind of what landed me in Minnesota, which is now what I call home. Got into the University of Minnesota master's program in kinesiology, which also came with a full time job as the group fitness coordinator. So I made the move to
Love that.
Minneapolis, got my master's degree in kinesiology with an emphasis in behavioral aspects of physical activity. So I really focused on kind of that soft science, right? The behavior change, the motivation, the experience. And I think that that education really kind of created the passion that I have for the experience aspect of indoor cycling, which I'm sure we'll get into today. And
Yeah.
9 years later, I'm still in Minneapolis
Come
teaching
on.
classes, still at the University of Minnesota, now in the capacity as the fitness and wellness director. So I oversee
Wow.
all of the group fitness, personal training, massage therapy programming that we have at the university. And it's so fun working with college students. That's kind of what keeps me in the education realm because they're fresh, right? They're in the same boat I was, where they're coming off of high school gym class and athletics, and now they're trying to figure out how to schedule their physical activity on their own. And we have the opportunity to create those really awesome experiences so that they start their college experience off fresh. And then on the other side of the thing, it's awesome to get to work with brand new instructors.
Yes.
We have a team of close to 40 to 50 group fitness instructors that have usually never taught anything before. So we get to see them from green to great, I like to
Yes.
say.
I love
Uh,
that.
and they graduate and they go on to be some of the best instructors in the cities or wherever their next job takes them. And it's so cool to be part of that next generation. And that's really what keeps me going and keeps me excited to show up to my job every day.
Well, I need to give you another mic because I know you're using a mic for this recording, but if you had a mic, like I think you should drop it right now because people of the internet, come on. This is the real deal right here. Ben is the real deal. I love, man, there's so much to talk about in everything that you just said. And I want to bring it all the way back to where you just said positive movements, like
Mm,
in the beginning where people may experience something a little bit disheartening or some kind of injury, right? And because they didn't have a positive experience, positive movement, in your words, they may have left sports. They may have left a passion that they may really want to pursue. And I know we're going to get into cycling, but that kind of just jumped out at me. And the way you speak in general jumps out at me because you say things like green to great. And I remember you even saying something back when back row Betty, you know, when you designed your like these. I'm telling you, man, you have a way of making things stick. Like
yeah.
I'm telling you, you're so masterful at that. But tell me, talk to me a little bit about where you started, how we started your story just now when you talked about just people experiencing positive movement. Like, what is how does that affect the athlete, the potential athlete, the person who should have been an athlete, and isn't no more because of what they experienced?
Yeah, no, I think you bring up such an awesome component, and it's something I could speak on for days. So we'll probably spend some time here. But
Let's do it.
I love the idea of everyone as an athlete, right? I think we get in our heads of like, okay, that person can go to a CrossFit class and feel super comfortable. They're an athlete. Me going on a walk with my dog does not count as being an athlete. And I think when we get that in our head that other people can do things, and maybe I wish I could do that, or maybe I don't wish I could do that.
Sure.
Uh, there's so much value in just movement and positive movement and having a positive experience with it. And I think that when we classify ourselves as athletes or non athletes, exercisers or non exercisers, we kind of take in that identity, and whether it's consciously or subconsciously, it impacts how we travel through the world and what we choose to
Mm,
do and what we don't choose to do. And like I spoke to, these single kind of negative movement experiences, whether it was a bad coach that pushed you a little too hard, or as we can speak to, I'm sure there's a lot of things happening physiologically during
yeah.
exercise that are not always the most comfortable. And if you're asserting exercise as feeling so breathless you're going to puke, you're probably not going to seek out exercise, right? But you don't need to get to that level necessarily to still be active and have activity be part of your identity and activity part of your life. So I really spend most of my time focusing on how do we find an activity that's enjoyable for you?
Yeah.
Whether that's walking, whether that's Zumba, whether that's CrossFit, whether that's indoor cycling, like it is for all of us,
Heck yeah.
and sticking to that, because we know that the more movement you have in your life, the happier you are, the healthier you are, the stronger
Hmm.
your relationships are. And I think we live in a world, especially for young people, that's kind of telling you what type of activity you need to be a part of, whether it's
Mm.
sports or dance or some other kind of pressure that you might feel. And my whole gig is really to just let's kind of be the hand holders, right? Let's take people, show them all the possibilities, let them fall in love with it. And that we know is going to lead to long term adherence, right? We know that enjoyment is probably the number one pillar of long term exercise adherence. And we really have to help people find that.
I love that. That's so good. Something that you said again, there's so much that jumps out at me. You said towards the beginning of this explanation here that if you go to a class and you basically work out till you want to throw up, you're not going to want to go back to that class, right? And I feel like there's certain detractors from group fitness in general, that being one of them, like this being like, oh, I'll never take a cycle class because I hear it's too hard, or I'll never do the HIIT class because I hear it's too this, I hear it's too that, I hear it's whatever that might be. So there's perception, right,
Mhm.
that keep people from joining what you and I know is the most beautiful community in the world, right? And of people who just love on each other and support one another. But then there could be a bad instructor, to your point. One of the things that I've totally, I said this morning in my class. I teach on Friday mornings, and I said, it's really easy for me, and I said it because of this, and hopefully I'm not going too many directions here. I saw a few people in my class, brand new, and you all. It's so amazing when you get the new person in your class, right? Because it's like you get to give them the first time experience, and it's like you started from the beginning all over. And I saw that they were going too hard. And I just kind of addressed the class after a challenge. I said, look, I said, it would be really easy for me to tell you to just go all out and then recover and just recover. I said, I could do that all day and you might sweat a lot and you might even feel like you had a great workout. I said, but today we're not doing that. Today we're going to do everything in the middle, everything that moderate place that's just slightly uncomfortable. I'm going to keep you there and make you love it for a while. and
Mhm.
because I feel like to your point, that could be super a detractor for people, and or it could be the go-to for the person who just feels like they have to do that. Like why is it in the brain of the person who's working out, there's two things going on there. One, I won't because it's too hard. Two, I gotta work harder, else I don't feel like I worked out. Like, tell what's going on with all that, man?
Yeah, there's so much that happens in the psyche of an exerciser during class. And I think to me, the kind of angel and the devil on the shoulder, or however you want to refer to it, is like there's so much pressure, whether it's from the instructor, whether it's from the other people in class who are maybe regulars and pushing harder. Maybe it's this voice of the doctor that you just saw that says you need to lose weight, or some other pressure that you're feeling, right? And usually that pressure is coming from outside our own heads. I think there's very few people that are feeling immense pressure to go above and beyond from within. I think then the angel on the other side is this like, okay, I need to be respectful of where I'm at and what my body can do and what I find enjoyable. And sometimes I feel like the instructor doesn't give the riders the permission to listen to the angel, right? They kind of give them permission to kind of cave in to all those other pressures, right? I think
Mm,
when I have a great instructor, it's that exact thing that you brought up where they're saying it's okay to not go 100%. It's
yeah,
okay to listen to your body today. It's okay to stick to an intention that you set about where you're at, and then let all those other pressures go. Because at the end of the day, and we know this as kind of veteran riders, no one else in class is paying attention to anyone else. It's like
right.
they're focused on the instructor and what's going on in their head. And
Yes.
you, as the rider, might be thinking everyone else is looking at you or judging you or kind of asserting whether or not you're working hard. But
Yeah.
we have got no idea what's going on with the people next to us unless they're on their phone, and we can get into that later.
Right,
But
right, right.
um,
Well,
I think
especially
that,
when there's like software on the screens and you could see
oh,
dials. Everybody thinks, I don't want them to see my dial. I don't, it's like nobody's looking at your dial. I promise. I'm not even looking at your dial, as the
exactly.
instructor.
I could care less. I could care less. And I think that
Yeah.
we just, as instructors and as fellow participants, even as we're kind of welcoming in new riders, because the only way for a cycle to live and to continue to go on is for more people to keep coming back to classes, right?
Right.
And that's on the instructor, but it's also on the community of riders. If you want your class to stay on the schedule, people need to keep coming and you need to create this welcoming environment. So I think focusing on allowing people to have permission to work as
Yes.
hard as they want, permission to listen to their body, permission to not go at 110% every single time.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have a more enjoyable experience for sure. So I'm happy to hear that you're taking that step to give your riders some permission to not go 110% all the time. And I spoke to that a little bit in the article
Mhm.
that just came out
Mhm.
with Shimano.
Yeah, and I'm
That
looking at it right here. We could dive into that a little bit right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we can link it to for people that haven't read it.
Yep.
It's this kind of focus on indoor cycling as this high intensity interval training style of exercise. And while, yes, there's a lot of those components and a lot of that high intensity that does happen, it's not all that happens. And it's not all that should happen in an indoor
Right.
cycle class, right? We know there's three bodily systems that work to produce energy. If we're only training one of them, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And
Mhm.
sometimes the best rides are just kind of set it, forget it, and the instructor tells a story, or we're watching a video, or we're focusing on the music. And we might not be doing high intensity intervals where we're sprinting all the time. And I think that that's really impactful. And I want to give instructors permission to not feel like they need to go 110% with their riders every single class.
I love that. I love that. By the way, the title of the article that you're referring to that just released about a week or so ago is "Hit versus Steady State versus Progressive Indoor Cycling and Beyond." And you, Emily Booth, which I interviewed recently, also on this podcast, were contributors to that. And it's such a good article, man, just to get people and for people like me who are totally into learning more. It's such a resource. I really appreciate it. I'll definitely link it um, so people can read this. But it's we need to honor like all the aspects of our body, all the aspects of our energy systems, all the aspects of our emotions. And what I find interesting, which I love, uh, is the community that's created. And that's something that you also mentioned as you coach new instructors from green to great. Part of that coaching has to be how you create community. And to your point earlier, I keep a class on the schedule, and that's language that we studio managers know, right? The managers of group fitness were like, got to keep the class on. Like that totally resonate with that, because we're constantly trying to use our money wisely, budget things, and make sure that we have the right class, the right performer, the right format, at the right time for the people that are coming.
Yeah.
And it's amazing thing. I heard, I want to throw this in there because I know you'll have something to say about this. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and there was a recent one that I had listened to on the Lex Freeman podcast, and he was interviewing a former CIA agent. And he was talking about how they have to go undercover, right? And how they have to convince people that they are somebody that they're not, right? And it's all about that consistency. But one of the things that I found interesting, and maybe this will connect, maybe not, but he says if you can create as a CIA undercover investigator person who's lying pretty much, right? If you could convince the people that you're this community that you're going into, that you are authentic and you are who you are, and they matter and they're in the moment with you, they'll believe you and you can get away with it. Like, and I'm not suggesting, here's what I'm not saying, let's lie. No. I guess what I'm saying is these professionals, they know something about humanity, and the reason why they put their lives at risk and such, and how they're successful at it is by getting into the psyche, by creating community, by creating an atmosphere of inclusion. And he just explains it like, and I'm like thinking to myself, that's group fitness, like, I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I talk about this with our new instructors all the time, right? That there's so many instructors out there, right? And there's so many people. And to your idea of the classes, there's so many people that could go and do a workout that's on YouTube, or they could subscribe to one of the apps, or find something out there to do exercise on their own. They're coming to group fitness and particularly cycle classes because they want to be part of a community. They want to
Yes.
be in camaraderie with other people. And I think that that's something that we need to strive to create and to keep. And I think we're seeing that coming out of the pandemic, that people want to be back in classes sweating with other people. And that's really
Yes.
exciting.
Yes.
But on the other hand, to answer your question, our job as instructors is to be that CIA agent,
Yeah.
and you want to be authentic enough that you can sell yourself, right? I think there's nothing worse than someone that's trying to be funny and they're just not a funny person, right?
Yeah.
So you have to stay authentic, but you need to be able to kind of put different masks on to
Sure.
cater to the wide variety of people that are coming to our classes.
Yes.
And I think that what we speak to is like 18 to 80 and everywhere in between are coming to our classes. So, how do you find ways to connect with every single one of them, whether it's through your music, through your cueing, the way you carry yourself before, after, and during class? And it has to be a little bit of a switch, because if you were living that kind of lifestyle 24/7 every single day, you'd be exhausted. And I'm sure a
Right.
lot of us
Right.
are if we were to try to do that. So it's like the second you walk into a cycle studio, there's like this switch. And
Yeah.
at the beginning, you kind of have to work towards it. But then as you teach for a long time, it kind of just happens,
Yeah.
where you have this confidence, this socialism, this idea of what people need. And it just kind of boom delivers. And when you can sell that, that's when your classes are going to be full. That's when people are going to be seeking you out. That's when people come after class to be like, this was the best class I ever had, because you're able to bring everyone in and make them feel successful. I think it's one of the hardest, what I would consider soft skills of
Yeah.
instructors, is staying authentic, but also kind of catering to the masses. And there's lots of ways we can try to accomplish it. And that's kind of the fun, is finding out what their kind of lane is, right? Because we
Yeah.
can't also go in the opposite direction of creating this box of like, the successful cycle instructor looks like this, Because if
Right.
we put someone into that box,
Mm.
we're only catering to the individuals that like that style of instructor.
Correct.
So what I always tell my instructors is you have to find your box, right?
Yeah.
And your box might bring in 20 people, but then your best friend who's also an instructor has a different kind of style, and that brings in 20 people. And now we're catering to 40 people
Yeah.
versus if you had the same style that you were just trying to replicate of someone else, then we're only serving the 20 people that like that style.
Yes.
And as I work with new instructors in my roles, a lot of them are like, oh, I want to be the next Cody Rigsby, or oh, I want to be the next Ali Love, or all of these
Sure.
really popular Peloton instructors, or other instructors that have kind of gotten to celebrity status. And to me, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice by trying to replicate someone else because
Right.
they're already out there. People are already seeking them out. But there's people that aren't moving, that haven't found that enjoyment in exercise, that are seeking out their person, their connection, their
1000%.
instructor.
Yes.
And you have to kind of find who you are and deliver that so that we're bringing in people that aren't moving. Right. And I think
Yes.
something a mentor told me a long time ago that sticks with me a lot is there are always going to be more people not moving than moving. And
Mm.
if we're all fighting over the people that are already moving, we're not doing the world a service. And we're all in
Wow.
this industry to get people moving. And if we're just fighting over the people that are already moving, we're not doing any
The world is a big place.
good. It's
The world is a
huge.
big place, and there's so many people for us to reach out to. I think of a couple of things when you explain that uh, to the member or to the online viewer, they look at us as an instructor, right? We're their coach, we're their instructor. Internally at Lifetime, we call each other performers
Mhm.
because we perform. And to your point earlier, we put on different hats, we put on different, like something just turns on, you know, right when the lights come down, the music goes up, like boom, like I'm on stage, right? I'm ready to perform, if you will, and not in an inauthentic way, but
Uh-huh.
in a way that says I'm doing what I love right now. I'm doing what I'm passionate about. Now, um, you I want to ask you mentioned boxes. Like we got to find our box. Totally agree. Totally agree. We have to be our authentic self. Totally agree. But inside of the box, I think it's important, and I want you to speak to this, that we still develop this skill set to appeal to more people. So,
Mhm.
in other words, I could be the the instructor who's just has all the energy all the time and all the catchphrases, and that's just me. But how do I appeal to the new person, to the returner, to the veteran? Like that's a skill set that we still have to refine all the time. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll bring up the metaphor that you alluded to earlier on,
I was
where
hoping you would.
yeah, I have these kind of personas in my head of who the cycle class instruct or participants are, and I'll name them just for fun. There's nothing connected to them, but it's front row Freddie, middle row Marvin, back row Betty, and not here Nora. And I'm sure those of you that are cycle instructors or even cycle participants, you know those personas, right? Front row Freddie is there every single day. He knows your music better than you do, and he's going to be pushing hard every single time. Middle row Marvin, you never know what you're going to get. This could be reading a book during class, on their phone during class, talking to their neighbor during class. You never really know. Back row, those are your new people. Those are the people that aren't super confident. Those are the individuals that don't want to be in the spotlight by any means. And then you have your not here Noras, the people that aren't even in there. They're maybe peeking into the cycle studio while there's class going on, but then they shut the door right away. They might have signed up for a class, but then never went. So now there's an open bike. And there's different types of strategies that we as instructors can use, but we have to keep every one of those personas in mind. And I think that that's the skill set that you're speaking to, right? Like
Yeah.
we need to make sure that front row Freddie always feels like he's seen, he's part of the decision making process, he's getting the workout that he wants to get. We need to kind of figure out why middle row Marvin isn't as committed as front row Freddie. And that a lot of times comes, in my opinion, from like private conversations. Like
Sure.
those are the kind of people I want to talk to before a class, kind of see what they're doing. Try to avoid giving them attention during class, or calling them out, because they're also not people that want to be called out for being on their phone or talking to
Right.
their neighbors. So we want them to feel included. The back row Betties, those are the people that were often neglecting because we're so focused on the front row Freddies of like, okay, cool, I need to make sure that this guy that's here every single time is coming back. But in reality, back row Betty should be probably the most important person that we're focused on, because
Yes.
they're the one that are constantly deciding whether or not they feel comfortable coming back,
Mm,
right?
mm.
They're checking in with their body, they're kind of looking around the room, they are close to the exit so they could leave in the middle of class. So it's a fine line of making sure they feel excited and included, but they also don't want to be kind of have the spotlight on them. So
Yeah.
I like to check in with those people after class in the hallway as we're heading out, just asking them how they're doing. Great people to introduce to others in class. I like to use my front row Freddies to help build community, right? Because
Heck
I can't
yeah.
get to everyone during
Right.
class. If I have 40 people, there's no way I'm having a touch point with every single one. But if I can encourage my front row peeps to go check in with people around them or give someone a high five during or after class, then at least hopefully we're kind of getting a little bit of help to those back row people, because they're the ones that are going to be talking about how awesome class was in the locker
Yes.
room.
Yes.
And then not hear Nora is going to be like, oh, well, they're having so much fun in cycle class. Maybe I should go.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the toolbox that you're speaking to, is
Mhm.
being able to cater to everyone, having little strategies and focuses on every single one of these personas. Being intentional, I think, is key. I
Mhm.
think a lot of instructors, they kind of go in, they're like, I have my regulars, that's enough to keep my class on the schedule. I don't need to have a full room, or people will trickle in and I'll always have about a full room, whatever. And they should really stay as committed as they can to creating a positive experience for all of the individuals.
Yeah. No, that's so good. I got a new one for you. Uh, Same thing, Sammy, right? I don't know. There's the same.
I
What
like
I
it.
mean by that is they do the same workout every time, no matter what you're doing. I got to get my 20 miles in. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then, but they love your class. I don't get it. I
Mhm.
don't get it. I'm like,
Yeah.
that was the best class ever. I'm like, same thing, Sammy. You did the same thing today. You just wanted to get 20 miles or whatever. That's so good. Um, so it's definitely a skill set. There's definitely intention. There's definitely uh, we have to pay attention. And I like to describe it like this to my instructors. We have to have a radar for what's happening
Mhm.
in our class, and we
Oh,
also have to teach every class as if somebody new was in there, even if somebody new is not in there,
yeah.
right? Because you have to be tuned up in case the new person does walk in there,
Yeah.
and this is probably one of the biggest things, one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I give to my instructors is I'll go to a class, I'll go attend it, and because I have a similar role that you do, in that I oversee 60 instructors and large group, small group, not PTs, so yours is a little more extensive than mine for sure. But what I see a lot of is just tunnel vision. Like I'm just catering to my same people. I know them. And what that translates to is I don't really have to do my introduction because they already know me. I don't really have to explain what's going to happen today because they've already been coming to me long enough. And to me, that's you can't be successful. You can't grow a class over time. If anything, your class will die because
Yeah.
those three people, 5, 10, whatever it is, there somebody's schedule is going to change. Somebody's going to move. Somebody's going to get hurt. And then you've never attracted new people. And what that translates to is if there is a new person, they might feel on the outside. They're coming into a tribe that is kind of set, right?
Hmm.
And you're just speaking to the tribe and they just feel like, talk about back row. Yeah, I'm glad I'm in the back row because I don't feel like I belong here, type of thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think I want to speak to the instructor a little bit here in kind of a multitude of ways. But I think the first thing that popped into my head is the amount of dedicated energy that it takes to put on a really amazing class is hard. It takes preparation, it takes a lot of dedication. And I think one thing I see in the fitness industry, because it's so hard to make it a full-time job or make money doing it unless you're teaching 4, 5, 6 classes within a short period of time. Um, you really can't and still be able to give that awesome energy every single time. And I'm lucky enough to have a full-time job, and then when I get to teach, it's almost a special occasion, so I really get to like dive fully into it.
Yeah.
But those of people that are kind of making fitness as much of a full-time job as they can really have to spend extra energy not getting into that tunnel vision, right? Like,
Right.
how do I keep things fresh? How do I keep myself from falling into this rut of kind of pressing play in my mind, delivering my class, hitting pause, going out, collecting my paycheck, and then hitting play again when I come back into the studio?
Yeah.
And it's hard to do. And I don't have a solution necessarily. All other than kind of maybe look at your class schedule and kind of be honest with yourself about what you
Yeah.
can do and what you can't do. But I know in today's economy, it's not always realistic.
Right.
So that's where I do recommend instructors teaching a variety of formats, because I think even having the ability to change environments, change styles, change groups of people, it just helps kind of avoid that monotony.
Yeah.
On the other side of things, I think I always remind my instructors that you already have a microphone on, you're on a stage, and you have full control of the room. If that's not enough for your ego, you kind of have to find something else to do with your life, right?
Right. Right.
Because I think sometimes we lose the connection in the community because the instructor's putting on so much of a show that they're only worried about what they're doing and they're not worried about what the class is
Yeah.
doing. And I think that that's a fine line that fits into that skill set as well. Is we need to be extroverted and big and have energy, but we can't focus so much on ourselves that we're not connecting with our people, right? Or we're not
Mm.
going above and beyond to put ourselves in this spotlight and then not putting others or putting the class experience in the spotlight. And I think a lot of people with kind of those performance backgrounds or just a lot of confidence in their own fitness and their own fitness journey find instruction as an awesome way to kind of share it with others, but then they're focusing too much on themselves and not the experience that they're providing. And I have to remember to check myself every time I walk into
Yeah.
the room that this is not my workout. This is not my show to get followers or to get everyone to affirm what I'm doing after class. This is
Yeah.
my hour to make sure that it's the best hour of every single person that comes to my classes day. And I think that that's really the joy in the work that we do, is we get to be the best hour of someone's day, but there's a lot of work and a lot of intention that has to go into that.
Yes. Probably one of the biggest pieces of feedback I'll give our instructors is I always tell them, I'm going to give you feedback based off of the perspective of I was brand new and I just came to your class. And if I was just coming to your class today, I probably would have been lost. I'm just telling you right now, I always give them that perspective, because if we're not coaching that way to everybody, it just kind of throws us off. And to your point that you just made, I also tell them this. I'll say, hey, when you have a favorite band and you get to see them in concert for the first time, and you see the drummer up there just going crazy, and you just love seeing the drummer like going amazingly, like just doing his thing, right? I said that's an amazing experience that we're watching. I said, but it's not what we do as coaches, though. We're today you were the drummer, like you were fun to watch, but you were just doing your own workout, like
Yep.
and kind of expecting us to just enjoy the show. I said, so there's a difference. There's a difference,
Yes.
So there's so much that we could probably talk about these types of things forever, but it's
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
No, it's definitely the case, and I think you're totally right that sometimes a fine line,
yeah.
because you want people to enjoy you, and part
Yes.
of it is this personality that you have to perform, and you want people to connect with that.
Yeah.
But we also have to have a little bit of a professional filter on
Yeah.
what we share and what we talk about and how we go about those classes. So
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of components, a lot of components. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the surgery that you had
yeah.
recently. Um, Hearing more about your story, about soccer, about, basically a life of being an athlete. How much, first of all, what surgery did you have? And then uh, rewind the tape a little bit, and what do you think led to just maybe the overuse, or what, or
Mhm.
genetic, whatever that is?
Yeah, for sure. Just to fill everyone that's listening in, about 10 weeks ago now, I actually had both of my hips replaced completely at the same time. So I got the right and the left done. They're both like fully bionic now.
Wow.
And the exciting part is I got to go to 3 hours worth of cycle auditions today and felt great. So I'm on the other side and I'm all healed up and feeling awesome. And when I first heard about the surgery as a possibility, you go through all the nerves of it and you're like, this is a major surgery. My life is going to be changed forever. And there was a lot of anxiety around it. But
Yeah.
then here I am on the other side of it, having gone super smoothly, um, so much less pain. And I'll get into kind of what I was feeling beforehand, but I want to make a point that I'm so, so, so happy that it happened because I got to put myself in the shoes of so many of the people we serve, right? That are dealing with chronic pain. Their bodies don't move like other people's. They are kind of deciding between, I know I need to exercise, but it doesn't feel good to exercise. So, how much exercise should I do? And all of those kind of mental circles that prior to the surgery and prior to having the pain that I had would have never gone through my mind.
Yeah.
And I think that now that I've had the surgery and I'm on the other side, I always want to keep that thought with me of, all right, I'm really lucky and really privileged to have had great medical service and have a body once again that I can really do almost anything I want.
Yeah.
But there was a time where I didn't. And all of those emotions and all those feelings impacted how I showed up, one as an instructor, and two, just as a fitness enthusiast and as an athlete, as I would call myself. Right. So, rewinding the tape, I have been dealing with hip pain for years now, probably close to 8 years of just different pain. It started as kind of impingement or pinching pain in the front of my hips. Over time, it developed into arthritis from the amount of use that I was having. Both of my parents have had their hips replaced, so there was a lot
Mm.
of kind of genetic factors as well.
Yeah.
In 2019, I had my first surgery, and they went in and kind of cleaned up the joints, got rid of a lot of the arthritis that was growing. Um, and then the pandemic hit, and I kind of didn't do a whole lot of activity. We weren't teaching as much. I probably wasn't as good at my physical therapy as I should have been. And my doctors continue to remind me that that wasn't the reason it all grew back. But you always kind of play those thoughts in your head. But
Yeah.
over the course of the 3 to 4 years after my original surgery in 2019, all the arthritis grew back to the point where even walking the dog was painful. I
Mm.
couldn't bring my knee even close to 90 degrees to my hip. Cycling, luckily, was one of the only activities I could do with minimal pain. The pain was still there, but it was minimal. So finally, you get to a point where your life is so severely impacted and all the things you enjoy are taken away from you that you'll basically do anything you can to get it back. And
Yeah.
at 30 years old, here I am having total hip replacement on both sides. But looking back on it, looking back on the journey, it's something I'm really happy to have happened. I want to reassure people that are in my same shoes that if that's kind of the prognosis you get, it's not kind of a death trap or
Yeah.
something that's going to ruin your life forever. Modern medicine has come a long way, and the whole process was really smooth. And I'm excited to kind of take what I've done and see where things go from here on out.
That's thank you for sharing that. I know anytime somebody talks about hip surgery in particular, any major surgery, it is a scary thing. But I agree that medicine has come a long way, you know, technology, what doctors are able to use, the healing process. Because we all heard the stories from before, you know, oh, I was never the same, or I still couldn't do this, or and you know, these are older stories, but we forget that things advance. We forget that there are new techniques, new modern ways you know, fixing the body that were not before, not the case before. So I'm really happy for you. Uh, when you say moderate or just minimal pain, uh, what did that look like for you? Like on the bike, like what did, you know, cause you were
Yeah.
still able to do it, but how did that
Yeah.
feel? I mean,
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think of kind of the anatomy of your body on a bike, you're just going into rapid hip flexion and extension kind of
yeah.
constantly.
Mhm.
So at the top of the pedal stroke, when your hip is in the most flexed position, the way that my anatomy was aligned and the way the muscles ran, there was always kind of just this subtle kind of pinching pain that happens. And then when you flip it around on the other side of it, with those kind of tight hip flexors as a um, kind of defense mechanism against some of the pain, on the full extension of the pedal stroke, there's like a little tightness and a little pain as well. And
Mm.
once the arthritis came back, it really is just kind of general pain throughout the joint. So it didn't really matter what you were doing. The worst was coming out of the saddle, because then your body weight is
Yeah.
all kind of being transferred through your hips into the pedals. And taking that extra pressure was always tough. So towards the end of or towards the part before surgery, it really became like, stay in the saddle as long as you can, only come out of saddle when you absolutely have to give yourself a little glute break.
Mm.
And that wasn't ideal, obviously,
Right.
both from a comfort perspective, and two, just from a training perspective. We know there's benefits to being in the saddle, out of the saddle, going fast, going
Sure.
slow, heavy resistance, low resistance. So
Mhm.
um, it's fun to be back and be able to play around with things again, and um, yeah, kind of have that full range of motion back.
Yeah. And you said you had auditions today.
We did.
So you're looking for instructors and you were able to kind of ride along with them for the 3 hours
Yeah,
off and on.
exactly.
How
Yeah,
did
off
that
and
go?
on. We had a little break in between, but it was so fun. So we had a cycle training led by myself at the beginning of the semester. For We had about 30 instructors or potentials in the class, and
Wow.
some people are there for CECs or just to kind of learn, and those kind of filter themselves out. But we had a really core group of about 16 individuals that took the course really seriously and followed up. We then allow them to teach with other current instructors for about a month after the training course. And then today we got to see them all audition and show us what they learned. And it's so, so, so cool to see, like I said, those green to great, where you saw them in their first teach back, or you see them when they're just leading through the warm up, and then to lead through a whole kind of 10-minute audition, and to see them have confidence. It takes me back to when I first started instructing, and the
Yeah.
high that comes from it, and the excitement. And that's really the joy in
Yeah.
being an educator and being a
Yes.
master instructor and getting to lead people through, is seeing them grow, seeing them have the confidence to be successful, and knowing that they're going to go out there and change lives. Right. I
Yes.
think when we
Yes.
think about the ripple effect, I know there's lots of companies that use this ripple effect, but we as an individual can impact a certain number of people.
Yeah.
But then when we think about all the people they impact, and then the people they impact, and the ripple effect of it going bigger and bigger, it's really, really cool to think of the, at this point, probably thousands of people that you and
Yeah.
I have had some sort of indirect impact as it relates to movement and cycle. And that's really why we're in this, right? Because we
Yeah.
know people are
Yeah.
happy and healthier when they're moving, and to find cycling or cycle instruction as the way to do that is just really the cherry on top of the whole experience.
Yeah. Well, I don't call it the ripple effect. I call it bike heaven. And
Yeah.
here's what I mean. I had an interview. I was talking to Spencer. He's one of our instructors at Lifetime. And I said, you know what, Spencer? I said, if there was a bike heaven, And this will lead me to two more questions. I'm going to be respectful of your time. I know
Oh, we're good.
we're I said, we never know, we as instructors, how many people we actually impacted. I said, but if there was a bike heaven, Spencer, you're going to get a lot of feedback, man. A lot of people are going to one day say, Spencer, I never told you this, but I was going through a dark time and I was going, and I like to refer to it as bike heaven, because we really don't know. Not everybody's going to give us feedback. Not everybody's going to tell us, hey, man, you helped me through a dark time. Hey, you helped me recover. You helped me, whatever it might be, get through a divorce, get through a breakup, get through a financial, whatever, because I took your class, right? And so I want to ask you a couple more questions to wrap things up. I know we could talk forever.
Yeah.
But we'll come right back to what I just mentioned, because I would love to hear some stories that you have. But I do want to rewind a little bit to the moment when the instructor that motivated you to say, hey, you should teach because you're always in the front row. And I specifically want to know from you what we do outside of everything we talked about, being prepared and creating environment. The biggest thing we do is we are public communicators. Like, we communicate in front of people. And so I would love to know from your experience, were you a natural communicator? Did it take you, or how long did it take you to feel really comfortable just standing in front of a room, being able to command the room through effective cueing, all of the above? Because some people are really good at it. Some people are just, they stand up there and they boom, hey, we're about to do this thing, and all of a sudden you're just like, all right, I guess we're doing this thing. But then there are others who, they have to learn that skill set. They have the passion, they have the talent, they have the commitment, but the communication style skill, if you will, has yet to be fine-tuned. What did that
Yeah.
look like for you?
Oh, it was a journey, let me tell you. I think if you asked any of my grade school or high school friends if you thought Ben was going to be a master cycle instructor traveling the world, teaching classes to, at one point, hundreds of people
Yeah.
in certain events, they would laugh. I think I was the quiet, nerdy kid that just like did really well in school, had a couple of close friends, but was like not even at the party, right? Like, let alone the center of attention, but like not even in the room,
Yeah.
because I was just like so avoidant of kind of attention. And it really didn't start out awesome as an instructor. And I share this because I love it. And I think it shows kind of the growth. And I bring this up in every one of my trainings that I do. But I'll never forget, after my first class that I ever taught in Seattle at school, someone came up to me after class and they said, Ben, I don't think this is for you. And I'll never forget that,
Wow.
because she was a teaching major. She was like the kind of person that should have known what it takes to educate and be in front of people and communicate, as you say, right? And to hear from that kind of expert that maybe this isn't right for you, it doesn't feel great.
Uh,
But then you can either take that and believe it, or you can be like, all right, cool. Well, there's nowhere I can go down from here. There's only going up. And I can only become more confident. And I think that that's something that I would want to encourage new riders or people that are kind of worried about that transition from front row to the instructor stage. Is you're probably gonna be bad at it at the beginning, which is okay. Like, we all started there. And then through little stories and little affirmation and little wins, whether they come from yourself or they come from others, you're going to slowly build up the confidence to do
yeah.
it. And I've had my own kind of nervous wrecks and little pauses and stuff in the middle of conference presentations. I know there's a couple people out there that'll remember specific conference presentations, but we're never going to be perfect at it. And there are going to be those performers that love being on stage. But like, we go back to those boxes. If you think your box is important and you think your perspective and your authentic self and the environment that you can create and you want to create is important enough, you're going to take those stair steps and you're going to gain the confidence over time. And it comes fast for some people and it goes slow for others. And you
Yeah.
just really have to respect the journey and stick with it. And There's always going to be haters. I'm sure you know that, being on YouTube and just being around, that there's always going to be people that don't think you're good enough. And it's a skill in itself to put those to the side and then just really focus on the people that are there to lift you up and that are going to be positive with you and are going to give you constructive feedback too. I think you probably have that as a leader of people, is sometimes we have to provide feedback that isn't "you did the best job possible,"
Mhm.
and we have to interpret that as they're just trying to care for us and they're trying to be the best person, they're trying to have us be the best person that we can be. And that's kind of what I've done over the course of my instructor career, which is now 12 years, which sounds crazy to think about. But you're going to get those little wins. There's going to be a couple step backs every once in a while. But if this is something you really enjoy and you really find meaning in, you're going to find your crowd, you're going to find your confidence, and you're going to find the people that connect with you.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing process. Today,
100%.
even during today's class, I a few new members came in, and I right away knew that they had been to a class before, but they were like expecting me to start doing some push-ups or something. Like they were like waiting for it. I could tell, and I'm just like sweating on top of my sweat from the class, from like, oh my God, they're going to think this is boring. Oh my God, they're waiting for the big move. Oh my, like I started overthinking it today, man, just because I knew. So then I referred back to what the class was all about and what we were doing and why this is important, because, oh man, it,
And I
it,
think you bring up such an interesting point too that goes with it, is we have to be the hand holders of helping people find experiences they enjoy,
right.
but we also have to let people know that maybe my class isn't the right place for you. I
Sure.
think sometimes we're like trying to gather as many people as we can into our
Yeah.
crew. We also have to understand that it's our job to handhold them into someone else's class if that's more of what they want or what they need, because then they're going to have a positive experience with those people. So
Yeah.
I think that that's part of our role as well.
Yeah. So two final questions.
Yeah.
How many people or how many places have you been that you just recall to memory as far as around the world, states, and what's the biggest venue? That's two questions there, but I still got to
Yeah.
ask about a story. And what's the biggest venue you've had the privilege of being in front of, like the biggest audience?
Yeah. So, kind of, I'll answer this question in a couple different ways. But for me, when I was in college and starting my fitness journey, we would go to the IDEA Personal Training Institute, which was in Seattle every year. And you go in just like bright eyed and excited and kind of taking it in from all of the master educators from all the different companies that are there. And you kind of idolize certain ones. And you're like, oh, what would it be like to be up on that stage at some point, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'll ever get there. And then I think back to that ideal world that I had the opportunity to go to, and to have it go full circle, to be able to be up on stage presenting to individuals and providing that experience to others was probably the most exciting and most memorable for me.
Yeah.
Being able to kind of go full circle there. My favorite crowd, and probably the biggest crowd I've ever taught to, is every year a group of us that have gotten to know each other through the various cycle avenues descend on Buffalo, New York, for
Yes.
the Ice Cycle outing, which is a fundraiser ultimately that benefits the Children's Hospital in Buffalo, New York. And they take 100 to 150 bikes, they put them on a hockey rink that's outdoors with this huge stage and sound system and DJ. And there we go, teaching to 100 to 150 people. And we're up there, the five of us teaching. And one, it's so cool to be up teaching with your friends, the people that have seen you at your lowest, seen you at your highest, kind of cheer you along the way. But then it's also so awesome to ride in a community of people that are there to benefit others.
Yes.
I think a lot of times exercise and fitness is so focused on what we look like and what our personal journey is, that whenever we get to take a step outside and think of fitness as the bigger picture of bringing people together, creating community, challenging our bodies to do something that it couldn't otherwise do. In this case, cycle in 20-degree weather while it's snowing, is really, really cool. So that's something I look forward to every year.
Is that
I'm
something that anybody can do, or is like
Absolutely,
I'm
yes.
I'm in next
Yeah,
year. I'm totally
I
gonna go.
know.
Yeah,
I'll definitely let the crew know you can come hang out with us. We need to
would
take
love
up
that.
more space. We always do the opening kickoff ride, and I think at some point we need to take over multiple. It's just so, so, so fun.
I
So
want to
yeah.
be front row Freddy there at that. I'm gonna cheer you guys on. That would be amazing,
Exactly.
man.
Yeah, swinging the towel
Heck
around. It's
yeah,
so awesome. It's so
yeah,
awesome.
awesome. Um, Tell me a story or two that you could remember of somebody that just you'll never forget that they shared with you after taking Ben's class.
Yeah. I You gave us this question ahead of time, and I thought and I thought and I thought, and it's hard to pick just one.
Mhm.
I think on a college campus, and I'm lucky enough to teach once a week outside of my kind of professional responsibilities, but there's so much going on in the world these days. There's so much of mental health struggle on a college campus in particular, with just the pressures of succeeding academically, socially, kind of finding your community, having people in new spaces, new states, new countries, even. I think we have a strong international population at the University of Minnesota. And to have someone come in and at the end of class say, like, this was what I needed, this
Yeah.
was the best part of my day. And there's always the side stories that go along with it, right? Like, oh, I just can't get away from the pressure of my parents, or I'm going through a breakup, or I just lost a loved one or a pet. And I never care about the story behind it, but to know that there's this really strong impact and that this is the one thing that gives them a little bit of light in the darkness. There's been more than enough times where I'm in the darkness and just teaching a class and getting the energy from the class gives me the light. And I'll kind of finish with this. I think something I've really started doing and has been really helpful, not only for me, but also for the riders, is at the end of class, I always take a moment while we're finished the cool down before we kind of wipe the bike down and go on, is three steps. The first step is give yourself some gratitude for showing up. And I think that that gives people that space of, yeah, I did take time out of my day to take care of myself, be in community with others, and really win. The second is gratitude for others. Like I said, if you wanted to work out by yourself, you'd hop on an elliptical or take a class through an app or something like that. But you came to a group fitness class for the energy in the community, and thanking the people around you is one way to really kind of give some gratitude to that. And the third is I always share gratitude to my riders. I think that we're used to having them come up to us and thank us for all the energy that we put into classes. But as we know, sometimes the greatest win is when we look out there and we see everyone having an amazing time and we get the energy of that and we see their successes. So I always try to thank them for showing up and for giving me the joy and the platform
Mm.
to be an instructor.
I love that. I love that. As you're saying that, I could just picture in my mind, how that makes people feel, how it brings them together, and it's no wonder you've had so much success in your 12 years of teaching and fitness and basically your career.
Yeah.
And Ben, I just want to thank you again for coming on, for taking
It,
time.
yeah, it was so awesome. I mean, I feel like we could talk for a whole nother hour. So maybe there'll be a Ben Kohler 2.0 episode coming out soon.
There will be, man. We'll make it happen. As you know, this is a little bit of a passion project for me. My heart for this podcast is just to bring on authentic professionals such as yourself that can help share stories, help better fine tune our skills, share the good, share the bad, and how do we continue to make the world a better place. And so you've
Absolutely.
definitely done that today. You've definitely done that. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
yes, and I will put all the links for everybody who's listening in the description below to the article and how you can connect with Ben. So, Ben, thank you so much, my friend.
Yes, thank you.